What up, guys? Jason Guyman here with Pressure Wash Christmas Lights Help.com .io. Jason don't know what I'm talking about. I have a few other guests on here tonight. I have Mr. Donovan. I have Mr. Greg, and we're going to talk about Christmas nights tonight. That's what I like talking about, and business and stuff like that. So, first off, tell me, Greg, a little bit about who are you and where are you from?
All right, it's Mike Connors,
Mike Connors. Greg, it's
but
our
that's okay.
business.
I I answered all kinds of names. You should hear what my wife calls me.
I hear that. I know what you
So,
mean by that.
all right. Well, yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about me and my business. I actually got into this business about 25 years ago, and it was right here, and I'm located in Southern California. North County is what we call it of San Diego. It's not San Diego proper, but it's a bit north of it. And it was really out of necessity I got into it. My son and daughter were still young, 2, 3, or my daughter was 2, my son was 6, and I was hurting for some money. I didn't know what I was going to do for Christmas for my kids, and I saw a couple neighbors struggling with their lights. I said, "Hey, you want some help?" And I probably did 10 jobs that first year just by knocking on doors, and I probably charged like $100 a house. It was nothing, it was a ridiculously low amount of money to put up their lights. But that's what got me into the business, and it was that next year and the year after, I just did it again just to make a little bit of money to help take care of the Christmas light or the Christmas presents for the kids. And then it wasn't until the third year that I got serious and realized that I was charging a lot less than people were willing to pay. And then that's when I started taking it serious. Was about 2000, 1999, 2000, and that's when we started, pricing them a bit higher. Now, 20 years ago, an average residential home was for us about $400. Now that price has gone up quite a bit. We're closer to about $1,500 on average for a typical North County 2-story home with your typical lights on the roof lines, and maybe a tree or two or a column or two on the house, and a wreath. I kind
Now
of like
that
to try to do the same thing.
that's a good point of
But
saying of because you started back when you actually had to have a brain to put up Christmas lights. You had to make sure that you wasn't overpowering stuff. You could only put so many strands on a line. You actually kind of had to figure stuff out and figure where to wire stuff. So now with all LED stuff, it's a little bit easier. Would you not agree with that side of things?
Well, I got a funny story about that. A lot of my clients didn't like LEDs, and I'm sure you guys experienced this a lot in the first couple of years as we started to do the switch over to LEDs. The lights were real bright and blue, and they didn't have the warm whites. So you know, you, when when you were doing incandescents, you always had to take into account. You always had to have 3 or 4 circuits set aside. They all had to be at least 15 amp circuits, and it was inevitable. My first couple of years, I must have gone back to each job 4 or 5 times just to reset GFIs and stuff like that. But you learn quick, especially when you're not making very much per home, that how to get everything set up. But yeah, I still have clients, believe it or not. I still have some clients, some old school clients that still want incandescents. I'd say out of the 600 clients I have, probably 60 of them still are hardcore incandescent light users.
So out of those 600, how many have been with you for 5+ years?
Oh gosh, 400 plus.
So you don't get a lot of new I mean, obviously you're getting 200 per year, but you have a pretty strong customer base of that stay with you year after year.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much already have about 260 deals already booked starting October 1st, already in the calendar. And
And
I'll book the other 100 or so of old clients over the next 15 or 20 days. And
and how
then
many
then
how
it's
many
just,
how many employees do you have to get that many lights up?
well, I'm running three man crews, Plus, I've got myself and my son, and we run around doing supplies and collecting checks and doing the walkthroughs and that kind of stuff. And occasionally, I try not to, but occasionally we'll jump up on the roof and help if they're getting behind on a job or two. But most of our jobs, we don't do real elaborate stuff, and not to say that we wouldn't, but we found that the bread and butter of our business is really putting up your basic lights. Now, if somebody comes to me and says they want to do Griswold, um, I don't mind doing that, but I up my price quite a bit because the time it takes associated to putting up a Griswold one, I could get 5 normal houses up, and I'll make 20.
How many of those fancy one-off jobs, the Griswold or your non-typical, what percentage is that, and what percentage is your bread and butter?
Oh, 95% are bread and butter. Only about 5% are crazy people that want, string lights across their cul-de-sac and stuff like that. Occasionally you get a crazy tree here or there. But tree, out of all the business that we do, I'd say the thing I hate the most, or I shouldn't say hate, but I least like doing is trees.
I love doing trees.
Do you? Well,
I do.
I think the reason why I least like doing trees is because we used to think of trees as an add-on. Because out here we don't have a lot of multi-branch trees; they're all mostly palm trees. So
Okay.
they're relatively simple, quick job. A 25-foot palm tree takes one of my guys 15 minutes to wrap and do. So we didn't charge a lot. And we learned from you guys actually that we were way off base on our tree lighting prices, and we brought ourselves up to that $30 per strand essentially on those. And so now trees have become much more inviting to us. In fact, the commercial job we just got, they have 2 multi-branch trees that are centerpieces in their drive-in area or drive-through area, and those are both going to be probably $5,000 or $6,000 trees to light up. So
I'm looking forward to doing like a $30,000-$40,000 tree. We haven't landed any of them yet, but like a huge oak tree that's just like massive with a ton of decoration stuff like that. Like I really want to do it for the sake of doing it, but even like at our pricing, it's like you spend all day doing one tree, like 8 hours, and it's like $2,000-$3,000. You're just not making the money that you can make wrapping houses.
right. I mean, you could get 5 or 6 houses done in that same time period and make 3 or 4 grand as opposed to the 2 grand. So what I will do from time to time, if I got guys, that's the hardest part. I don't know about you guys, but the hardest part for me is crews and
Yeah.
keeping crews. Now I got a couple, 3 guys been with me for like 5 years, and they always say they're not going to do it again this year, but they end up doing it again. And I'm hoping that's the case this year too. And those guys are good. I can count on them. I put them on a lead. They're always lead guys with a couple of new guys that I pay $15 an hour to, and they rock and roll. When you have a guy that's been on your team for 5 years, they know most of the houses, so I don't have to worry about going out there and making sure it's done right. I know the guy's going to do it, but the hardest thing is, like I said, keeping crews.
So
Now, do you run a year-round business?
I do and I don't. So I was a former commodities broker, currency trader. I retired full time in 2009. This business, we really started putting more power behind it in 2009. That's when we started hitting that 500 home mark, and just kind of something to put money in the bank for me for those 4 months, so that the rest of the time I could be on the road in my RV. So
Okay.
my wife and I, we RV across the country from February to September 1st most of the time. And so that's essentially what I do. But if I'm around during the off season, we do event lighting. The name of the company is Holiday and Event Lighting Professionals, or HELP. So we do. So we do event lighting. We'll do weddings. We'll do graduation parties. But there's not a lot of big money in that. The markup is not as great as it is during the holiday season. And not to say that there isn't some great opportunities during the off season, but I don't count on it.
Yeah, so your challenge is a standalone business model, and you have an even bigger um, issue to overcome with employees than I do. You're right. So both Jason and I had the add-on business model where, we're basically adding on this service during our downtime, and so we
Right.
have employees, and we're always trying to hire more for the season, but you got to almost start from zero if all your guys are like, all right, hey, this year we're quitting on you. So
Yeah, well, you know what I found is, and that's the truth. If I had enough business to keep guys employed year round, I would. I don't want to take on another business plan like power washing and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm in my mid 50s, so less is more for me right now. I've got a 25-year-old son tomorrow, who's a 48% partner in the business, and starting this year, he's going to be doing a hell of a lot more of the work.
yeah,
So
don't give them 51%. You can make sure you keep them
no,
at that
no.
48.
Yeah, no, he's staying at 48. I told him, I said, there'll be a time when I don't do anything, and you're still only going to have 48%.
Yeah, you're just gonna be cashing checks. So is he as
Yeah,
passionate about the business as you are?
he is. In fact, he's more passionate about the pricing. See, him and I have always argued about pricing. So because I'm old school,
Right.
I had a business partner, and I remember the first day I walked out after we did a house, and I counted off his half. I was like, boop, 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 here's your $400, and he was just like, because it took us 45 minutes to do it, and it was their lights, and so it was shocking to us that for that we could make in 45 minutes a $500 job, and so for us to comprehend $5 a foot on installations was what we were seeing other people do, and I would argue with my son. I'm like, no, we're going to lose business. People are going to say no. And so we came up with a good compromise, and the compromise is we advertise at a much higher price, and we pitch it at that higher price. And then if that lead doesn't call back or doesn't follow through, we have a secondary company that follows up with a secondary phone call at a much lower price, at a price that we feel we're going to get them for.
Now
So
don't give
And
away any trade secrets, but
so
that's a good
I
hint
want to
right
hit
there.
on this because you've been in the business for a long time, and this is something that a lot of the old dogs have a hard time hitting this. And being that you're kind of one of the dogs of has a lot of lights, you're also one that have been raising your prices and raising your rates as you've been going through. And a lot of them, they go, some of them I know have 1,000 customers, 2,000 customers, and they keep that low price and they never raise price. And so that's something that I know it might be hard for a lot of people, but what was the thing? And I know you said you and your son kind of argued, and that might be a good thing that way it kind of poked the pig a little bit to try it. But what are some things that you had to overcome to be able to keep raising those prices and to get them up to keep them making profit?
well, honestly, the biggest thing for me to overcome was the fact that I would never pay that price to put up lights to somebody else. So that was the hardest thing for me, is being able to comprehend that there were people out there that aren't like me, and I realize that, thank God, because otherwise we wouldn't be in business. That are willing to pay somebody $5 a foot to get up on their roof and put up lights. So it was really just a subconscious thing for me after charging an average of $500 a home for so many years, and thinking I was doing great. Just the idea of doubling that, which is essentially what the pricing at $5 a foot does, is it almost doubles that. I was dumbfounded, but I said, all right, Sean, you're doing the pitches. Here's your leads. You go do your thing. Let's see what happens. And he didn't close as many deals as I did, but his dollars were definitely higher than mine when it came down to it. Like, I might have closed 20 deals and he might have only closed 12, but he was bringing in 30 grand and I was bringing in 26 grand. So
Oh, there you
it was
go.
hard. Yeah, it was hard to argue with him, but the hardest part for me was was thinking that I'm going to lose these other 15 customers that I had, right? Because I'm thinking, well, gosh, man, I know that's only $600 a house, but gosh, that's 15 houses right there. The
Right.
only thing the only thing that helps me prioritize that is my crews. Now, if I have the crews to do them all, I do them all. But if I
Right.
don't have the crews or the days to do them, then the $600 ones go out the door and the $1,500 ones come in the door. And you know, for as far as raising prices go, my pitch is your price is going to be the same every year from as long as your design stays the same and you don't move to a new house. If you move to a new house, we have to change your design, then your price is going to change. So if you
Right.
add to it, it's going to go up. If you subtract from it, we'll reduce it. But I always increase it by $50. Like I just say we have an additional $50 takedown fee, or our takedown fee is an additional $50. So right now our takedown fee runs about $150, and we charge that. It's all part of the process. But so
Right.
each year when I go to a client, they're paying me $50 more than they did the year before, whether it's their lights or my lights. And I, talking about that, majority of my customers are their lights, only because I've been with them for, they've been with me for so long. It's only been in the last 5 years or so that we started to go back to the leasing of the lights. I
But
really was,
there's
again,
still the
go ahead.
SPT1 or SPT2 lights, right? They're not the store-bought lights, or do you install like store-bought lights?
Well, for customers that have been with me for a long time, back in the day before, and I say before, 10 years ago, before I spent time looking for lights, we didn't like the logistical issues of having to find lights for customers. I hadn't set up wholesale distributors or connections like I have now, so I would always pitch them like, this is what the cost is, plus lights. And when they said, well, what kind of lights do you have? I would say, this is what I'd recommend you do. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Now, I don't recommend that anymore.
Yeah.
If if the client is a client, they've been with me and they still want me to do their lights, I will do their lights. I do push all of them to upgrade to LEDs. And if
Right.
I can, if it's a big house, I'll push them to buy wholesale from me, so that that at least I can make a little bit of a markup on the lights, and I know
Right.
that they have commercial grade lighting on their house. I'm not worried about the little fuses starting to shake. And I almost burned down a house about 10 years ago because of Home Depot lights.
Tell us more about
So
that then.
well, so and they were incandescent lights, so that's even more. But you know how all those C9 incandescent lights in the plug, they have the fuse. And if those fuses aren't tight, they bounce around and they create a little arc.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice it, and luckily the owner of the house didn't notice it either till the day we went to take them down. But all the plugs along this whole fence line had just melted into a big ball of greenness.
Yeah.
And needless to say, we don't do lights on fences, on wood fences like that anymore. We won't do incandescents at all on anything wood. We will do it on a house, but only if it's on tile or a gutter. I like to keep that heat away from the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody asked the question here of what income do people need to spend $1,500 on lights? I'm gonna say one thing that I heard from Jason last week. You're going to be a little bit different because you're in San Diego and everything is expensive out there. There's nothing cheap out there, But one thing that he was said, and this is in Louisville, Kentucky, where he was at last week, was saying, if their house payment is going to cost more than their lights, then that's not probably going to be my customer. So, he wants their house payment to be $2,000, $3,000. That's probably going to be my customer. Now, out in California, that's a whole different thing because you can't find a house. I had a friend that lived, actually, I had a niece out in San Diego, and I think just a little apartment, a studio apartment was like $2,000 or $2,500 a month. So, but what are some things that you qualify people for that to be able to see if they're going to be able to afford those lights or not?
Their facial expression when I give them the price. I mean, honestly, it really depends. Obviously, the neighborhoods really help in determining what price, or whether I'm gonna be pitching somebody that can afford the prices that I like to get. I do adjust my prices based on the neighborhood, and my son and I are both the ones that do all the quoting. So we do adjust our prices also based on the individual customer, and some people might think that that's unfair, but it's not really. I mean, if I go into a neighborhood where the average home value is 400 grand, I'm pitching them a little bit different price than I am in the $1 million home section. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
I do.
Like, and and I on average it works out to be about the same price per foot per home, but I will give breaks to families, and if they've got little kids, it really depends on my mood that day. But if they've got little kids and I know it's going to make the kids happy, that's really what the business has become for me now.
So
I don't get me wrong.
that's why your son can sell 30,000 and you're only selling 26 at 20 houses. So
Because your son's like me, he's a Grinch. He wants those green dollar bills. He doesn't care about happy lights for
Right.
kids.
Right. Well, he's young. That's why I told him. I said, you're just like I was when I was 25. It's all about chasing the money. And I'm like, and this business needs somebody like that in the office, and help steering the company forward. I said, I'm not that guy anymore. You're that guy.
Right.
I'll be the guy that makes sure all the customers are happy.
There you go.
And that's what
Good
keeps our
balance.
business going long term. Right. Because ultimately, I mean, if I had to go through new customers every year, and we still probably, we'll probably lose 100 customers, or 100 customers a year don't repeat. But if I had to get new customers every year, it'd be a chore. It's not undoable though. I mean, I tell you how I got my customers out here in California. On every left-hand turn, when you have a left-hand turn at an intersection, there's a little sign right there that is for the other people that says, there's a medium here. Well, we would take an 8x11 sticky label, and it just said holiday lights installed and my phone number. And I'd stick them on every left-hand turn high enough so that anybody in line in the left-hand turn could see it. And I mean, we got called by the city probably 150 times, but never fined. They just call and say, hey, you need to take those down. That's illegal. But okay, yeah, we'll get to it. And we eventually got them down and got them cleaned. Or the Karen in the neighborhood went in there and scraped them off 5 minutes after we put them up. But that's the majority of our business came from, was just those left-hand turn signs, and some signs on the van. And now we have a Facebook page. We have, we do a home advisor. We do, gosh, there's a couple of other ones that we do, but most of those I end up having to turn off during the middle of the season because I just don't have any days left for them.
now, do you have like a big expensive website?
No. I have a website. In fact, it's not even up yet. It will be up again. I only run it temporarily because I just don't want all the. What happens if I leave it up all year? I get emails of people asking questions about installations that I never answer, and then it turns them off. So I leave it off, and they can send a message through my Facebook page, and then I'll respond with, hey, we do appointments starting September 1st, something to that extent, unless I'm in town, and then I'll go out and do it earlier. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'd say 95% of all of our new business comes from referrals. Referrals are number one.
So what does your son do all year? You're riding around in the RV. What does your son do?
He does a little bit of everything, but he sells solar during the off season.
Okay,
So
so
he
he's out
travels.
there. You haven't spoiled him too bad.
No. I make him work. He doesn't. He makes a decent amount of money from the 4 months that we put in, but it's not enough for him to sit still and rest on his laurels. I'm like, hey, you got to go build your own dream too. It can't just be my dream.
Yep.
I said, besides, your sister's getting old enough, I'm going to have to give her a piece too. And you don't think that's coming from my end?
Yeah, it's coming from his 48%.
Yeah, no, I'll probably give her some from mine too. But she helps out in the back office. She's only 18 now, but she makes phone calls and answers questions and stuff like that. It's a family business. My wife tries to get involved, but she just messes things up. So we try to keep her. We pretend like she's helping. And say, "Good job, honey." Okay.
Now,
That's
do you
like
have
reverse
any?
roles between my wife and I. I'm the one that hops in there and messes everything up.
Yeah, no, but Christy's really good with the paperwork and keeping all that in order. Um, I'm real good at being out there in the field and keeping the clients happy and, dealing with any problem clients.
Here's a good
And it's not too
question.
often.
Here's a
Yeah.
good question that came through too. Is do you meet and do you do in person quotes or do you do them all online from Google?
Okay, again, it depends on the person I'm talking to on the phone and what I'm hearing over the phone. 90%, I didn't say 90, 75% of all my bids are done on Google Earth or Google Maps. 70% of all my bids are done that way. The other 30% are done in person, and it's because it's a bigger house. It's a neighborhood I haven't been in before, or they're asking for a specific type of detail that I need to look at, or Google Maps doesn't give me a good enough view. And I always, when I do anything over Google Maps, I always preface it with, prices would be adjusted on site should it appear anything different than what I see here. And for the most part, my quotes are pretty good. You've
Yeah.
had to, yeah, you always give a bad quote every now and then. You have to bite one or two jobs a year.
Yep.
Yeah, I never forget one time I pulled up to a tree and it was like this tree had been on Super Miracle Grow and it's like I could put every light on this in my truck and I still ain't got enough lights for this tree. So we're gonna have to back out of that one. So
The very
Yeah,
the
I've
very
had some.
first tree that I ever did, it was the most beautiful, perfect tree on Google. And I pull up there and put that clip on your tongue, D. Um, I pull up in the tree, it's split in half. So it was like this, and I talked it up like this was the whole focal point of this entire install. And I talk it up, and I show up, and there's half the tree, and I'm like, this is going to be horrible. This is absolutely going to be horrible. And I got photos on it. As a matter of fact, the guy who did my website, I couldn't convince him to take that photo down off my website. I gave it to him year one, and I kept with messaging, "Hey, dude, replace it. I do better work than this now." And it stayed up there until the huge convention. And I made him put it
At
down right
least,
there on the spot.
at least take my name off of it, right?
Right. Put that on somebody else's website, right? Oh man, we got one question from you from Facebook, Mark. This is my first season, not nervous at all. Met you at the huge, and or met and heard your talks at the huge. I'm praying for a good season. I'm in Houston as a pressure washer. Want to sell $50,000 solo. So, what is your take? Can he do $50,000 solo? And then what for somebody just starting out? What's sort of the most important things that you would think that they need to consider?
Okay, when you say 50,000 solo, it means just a one man crew, just by himself, or
yeah.
okay?
Yep.
Gosh, that's depending on your pricing, it's doable. Now, using my old school pricing, that's quite a feat. At $600 a home, but using what we consider today's pricing out there, which is I don't know what you guys are, but you're probably around $4 or $5 a foot. Is that right? Maybe even a
eight
little bit
dollars a
more. No,
foot, $8 a
I,
foot.
I
eight.
think I'm the most expensive person in the nation, so I've found that
When
out by talking to folks.
when I got out of
I'm like,
business,
Okay,
when I got out of business, I was at $8 a foot, and Donovan was about $10 of $8 to $10 last year.
but
yeah,
you guys are dealing with snow, aren't you?
he is.
No,
I am.
he
He's
is.
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I was dealing with snow, I would definitely be at $8 a foot, and $5 a foot is. I mean, I think that's just. I'm ecstatic at $5 a foot.
Yeah.
You know, and because the cost for bulbs and lines are what, about $1.25 a foot. So
You're
I'm
about
still
$2
making
average time you figure all your clips and everything.
flips, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still
And
making
he's
I'm
in
making
Houston.
$3 a foot.
Yeah, this guy's
What was
in
that?
Houston, so there's a lot of installers in Houston. So I would say $5-6 a foot is, to be realistic. I
But
mean, you can get a lot more than that,
I
but
also know
there's a lot
people
of
in
people there.
I also know people in Houston like Chris Martinez that's getting that
Yep.
$7-8 a foot. So there is people in that area that are charging more than just the cheaper people that are charging out there
Yeah,
too.
I think the trick is that you go in and you ask for the higher price because you
Yep.
can't go up. Somebody says yes at $3 a foot. You can't go, oh shit, I meant six. You can't do
Right.
that. But if someone says no, so this is for the guy in Houston. If someone says no at $8 a foot, there's nothing stopping you from calling him back in 2 days and saying, hey, look, we have 3 other jobs in that neighborhood, and as a result, I'm going to have crews there. I can give you a discount and then offer them a discount, and you don't lose that lead. That
Mm-hmm.
lead still becomes, a doable lead. That's the way we're doing it from now on. My son and I have agreed that we pitch them at the high price, and if they don't fall within 3 or 4 days, then our secondary call goes in at a lower price,
Well,
which is,
Well, and that's even like
good.
for you. Even if you did it $8 a foot and you give a 25% discount 3 or 4 days later, you're still at $6 a foot, and they think they're getting this big discount at the end of the day. And they're really
Right.
not at the end of the day. You're just at your regular normal pricing at that point. So now you're
Right.
bringing that clientele up, and you're helping bringing that clientele up. I always like the 80-20 rule. Sometimes we need to drop off the 20% so we can replace that 20% with the higher 20%. And that way we're getting better clients, higher paying clients. And that at the end of the day makes more profit, makes more things happen. And here's the thing, help is getting harder and harder to come by. And the only way you're going to combat that is you got to pay your guys more this year. You're going to have to pay more out this year just because that. You're going to be paying more out this year because product is going to be getting scarce. Product is starting to get scarce. Stuff is costing way more to get it from China than it did last year. And so all of that's going to affect all these other prices. So if you're at that low bottom dollar, you ain't got no wriggle room, and you're going to not be making, it's not even going to be in the profit. You're going to be in the red before you even get
Yeah.
started.
I'd say the biggest mistake that new people make is that they're not prepared with inventory. What stops you, and this is particularly the guy in Houston, what will stop you from getting to that $50,000 mark will be that you didn't source your product beforehand. So if you know what how much product you're going to need for a $50,000 year, you need to source that right away because the so I'm generally pretty good up until about the second week or probably December 6th, December 7th or so. And then that's when things start to get really tight. That's when, you got no more days on my calendar left. And I got, a billion people calling, begging for a spot in the calendar at that point. And finding lights, even if you're going to your wholesalers, they're probably down to nothing at that point. And even if you have to go retail and you have to go to the big box stores, which a lot of times from December 15th, December 10th or so to December 20th, I if I've gotten a bunch of extra jobs, I got to do Home Depot lights.
Right.
And I tell them, hey, they're Home Depot lights. So I charge them a little bit less, but it still works.
So being in California, do you get to do any famous people's houses?
Well, I guess it depends on what you call famous. So I do Tony Hawk's house. I do Jeremy McGrath's house. You know who Jeremy McGrath is? He's the Tony Hawk of motocross, but he's actually a truck racing now. And then I do Mitt Romney or Matt Romney's house. And I used to do Mitt Romney's house in La Jolla, but I haven't done it in like 3 years. And it was only the tree in the middle of the driveway. But he just sold that house this year, and between you and me, I wouldn't do anything for Mitt this year, anyways, even if he wanted me to. Did I say that quiet? Did I say that quiet enough?
No, you
Okay. I still do plenty of work for his kids and love his kids. I don't hold Mitt's attitude against Matt and his daughter. So, but yeah, that's about as famous as I get. I mean, locally, there's some famous people. I do the man or the mayor of Encinitas, the mayor of Carlsbad, couple of other people like that, but nobody real famous. No,
Gotcha.
no
So,
Tom Cruise or anything like that.
so somebody had wrote a question up here, and I had put that, what is the most kind of the profitable, or what was the question here? It was about, um, let me see, highest margin lights, roof line, bushes, or trees. Which I say roof lines, you're going to be your highest margin. That's what I always, if I ever started a business, that's what I would want to do: roof line and a reef, and that's all I want to do. That's, you'd have zero headaches, and
Yeah,
you'd have
yeah,
nothing at the end of the day.
absolutely. Absolutely. Roof lines are the bread and butter of the business. And we're not talking about the ridges, we're just talking about the gutter runs, the edge of the house. And 90% of my house, 90%, say 80% are just the front. Maybe
Yep.
3 to 5 feet back on the sides, and it's just the front of the house. And that's where the bread and butter is. I mean, a typical North County 2-story house with just roof lights along the gutter line, that's a 45-minute job, and it's $1,500.
Do
And
you
so
guys have a lot of tile, roof tile there, or are you using
that
shingles?
98% of us is ceramic tile.
So
98%.
how are you attaching your lights? Are you hitting it the drip edge? What, or do you have a specific clip that you like using?
Well, you're not going to like this answer, but I really like the Home Depot clips. The ones that come $75 a box, or 75 per box for
Yep.
$5. I do use tough clips and some of the other ones in special situations, but I found that the Home Depot clips, I've learned over the years just to manipulate. I've worked with them for so long that I can manipulate them for almost any type of application. But
Nice.
90% of this stuff is on tile, and then on any of the peaks, we do the flashing. We put the lights
Yep.
inside the flashing, and a lot of times we'll use the built-in clips on flashing because we don't
Right.
have a lot of big temperature changes out here, so we don't have to worry about the plastic getting brittle.
Right.
Are you doing C7s or C9s?
C9s, 90% of the business is C9s, and then minis for everything else. We get an occasional specialty light bulb that a client will want, and 9 times out of 10 they're ordering from the website, that type of thing.
So you had said in the beginning that you don't do much commercial, but there was a question here of kind of commercial bidding and planning. The jobs that you have done, is there anything that you try to do special for commercial wise?
Well, I tell you what, I think the one thing I've learned about commercial is that if you're developing the lead, I'm not going to speak on that because that's a different ball game. If you're developing the lead, if the lead is calling you, the proper way to approach that is let the lead lead. And what I mean by that is they've already got a budget in mind. They've already obviously made the step of calling you. So when you go out there and meet them, the biggest thing is to shut up. Right. Exactly. That's the biggest thing, is to be quiet and just go, so what are you looking for? Why don't you walk me through everything that you have in mind? And then that way, and you try not, I mean, I make the biggest mistake of opening my mouth during the middle of that. And a lot of times or not a lot, not anymore, but I've probably lost, 50% of the value of a job because I opened my mouth up and said, did you think about this? And, oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, scratch that, So, I tend to keep my mouth shut on commercial walkthroughs and let them do everything. And then I spend the next day doing a draw up of the commercial walkthrough and then add the things that I didn't talk to them about, but I add them on. I send them 2 proposals, one that shows them everything they wanted, and then one with everything they wanted, plus the additional things that I recommend. And I try to get a chance to talk to them on site. Like if they've missed this big centerpiece tree, I'm going to point it out while I'm going through the walkthrough. But I won't point out small stuff like, the half a dozen trees over there that should be wrapped and that kind of stuff. I'll wait and do those on the proposal so that when they look at it, they go, oh, well, there's more than what we were talking about. Oh, that looks really good, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But commercial, the other thing about commercial is commercial's a year round um, thing. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
closing a commercial deal, you're probably not closing it after September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably closed that commercial deal during June, July, August. And that goes even for like homeowners associations. Homeowners associations generally are an August meeting where they figure out what kind of decorations they're going to do. And
That's
and
usually
I'd
when
say
they're doing their budget planning and they're trying to spend their money, and so that's why that's in that
exactly.
time period of why that's in that time period. So
Now I do all my reach outs to all my who I think are going to be commercial clients. I try to reach out to them in May, and I do like a 5-point touch thing where they get a phone call, they get a postcard, and they get 3 emails that follow up, and then that way, when I call, they say, "Oh, you're the guy that's been sending me the postcards," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the guy," and generally I'll when I do my leads, or when I this last couple of years when I've been doing the commercial stuff, I now have a lead base, a pipeline that's probably 3 years old, because there's some clients that I've been talking to that were under contract, and I'm waiting for their contract to expire. So, I would say this, that if you're in this for the long haul, when you do talk to a commercial client, it's very important to find out when their contract's up and start talking to them 6 months before that contract date is over, so that you're ahead of the guy that's trying to re-sign them. And so that's the key. I mean, and the other thing I would say is that don't it's nice to have these big huge clients, but you lose one big huge client and there goes your whole freaking season, right? So it's nice to have a bunch of medium-sized clients where if you lose one or two because somebody did something or whatever, it doesn't kill your business. You're not at home wondering how you're going to pay your guys because your $50,000 job just left.
right.
Right? That's probably the one thing I've learned. It's just the more clients, the better, right?
1% of 100 instead of 100% of one.
Exactly. We all think alike. We're all on the same page.
Most of us,
Definitely on
yeah.
the
I
same
don't know. I think I might be a little different. Hey, Zeus.
page. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
We're not
do
talking
you
about
do you
that
I
do a
now.
lot of HOAs?
I don't do a lot of them, but I do get a lot of leads from them. A lot of the HOAs call. Um, I think that a lot of them are shocked by the prices. They're expecting, somebody's going to come in there and wrap 25 palm trees down their middle row for, $500. And I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And, these HOAs, they have money. They definitely have money. I mean, it depends on the neighborhood you're going into, but if you're going into a 500 home HOA, they got money. I
They
mean, and
got a
there's
lot
no
of.
reason to pitch them. Yeah, and there's no reason to pitch them cheap. You pitch them expensive. I've actually lost some jobs, I think, because I've gone in too low. Like they've looked and said, well, how could he possibly do that for that
Right.
price? We're gonna go this guy. He's twice as much. you know.
Right.
So I've seen that happen once or twice to me.
So how many seasons do we need to put in before we can buy a Winnebago?
A Winnebago. I have been every year thinking about buying uh, a lift truck. Every single year, I say to myself, I'm going to get myself a 20-foot lift truck van, and I tell you that out of all the jobs I do, could I use a lift on 10% of them? I could, but I probably only get a lift for 2 or 3% of them. And so every year I end up saying, I'm not going to spend 15 grand on a lift truck. If you guys are like me, old school, I do everything from the roof. It's very
Yep.
rare I work from the ladder, and it's
Yep.
very rare my guys work from the ladder. We always work from the roof and lean over. Scares the hell out of most of the new guys. But we
They
get
get
the
used to
jobs
it.
done. What is that?
I said they get used to it or they don't.
They do, yeah. They get used to it or they don't. I have been providing some harnesses for my new guys. I didn't for years. You know, it was like, hey, you know, no, we don't have. You know, we were just a one man shop, no insurance, no nothing. You know, yeah, I'm paying you 15 bucks an hour, and if you fall, you're fired.
Before you hit the ground.
Before you hit the ground.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but now I do some harnesses. I get some some Home Depot harnesses, and we'll put an anchor point at the top of the roof at the peak, and then they have their own little, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a little guide thing that lets them let the stuff out. And if it starts to run too quick, it catches on them. Fortunately,
So
the only person that's
how do
ever
you anchor on a tile roof? How do you put that anchor at the peak on a tile roof?
I actually take off the crown tile. I'll take off a couple of them, pull the nail out, and then hang it in there. Hold on a second. Let's decline my wife. She's probably wondering what I'm sitting in the parking lot for the last half hour for. But yeah, I'll take the crown off of the tile roofs, and then I'll screw an anchor right into the roof. And you know, my guys are light. I tend not to have anybody over 180 pounds up on the roof, especially the tiles. You know, if you're not light footed. I had it's a funny story. I had a business partner, and like I said, 90% of our roofs are tile, and they're the curvy tiles, ceramic tiles, and unless you're sure-footed on those things, every step can be a broken tile. And that was my business partner. He got on a roof once, took about 20 steps, and I said, turn around, walk back exactly the same way you came. Don't ever get on a roof again. But
Right.
you know, it takes a special way to walk on those tiles. I would love it if I had nothing but shingle roofs, asphalt roofs. That would be
What
that'd be
type of
awesome.
shoes are you wearing up there on the tile roofs?
Oh, you guys are gonna hate this one too. Do you guys sell shoes or something? Because you're gonna really hate this.
Do we sell shoes? No, we
Flip
don't.
flops. Awesome.
Nice. Nice. I know I'm not the only one wearing Crocs up on a roof.
Okay, so I don't let any of my guys go up on a roof with flip flops. The
Yeah.
truth is, I don't. But I mean, my feet I can't put socks and shoes on my feet anymore. I've been in Southern California for 30 plus years. I have a permanent like indentation in my foot from the flip flop band.
Where the
You
little
know,
thong
so
goes. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's nothing I can do about it. They call me
Oh, man.
when I was doing contracting business, they called me the flip flop contractor, and I've lost a
There
few
you go.
toes because of it. But it didn't change a thing for me. You know, when
There
you're
you
old
go.
school, you're old school.
Nicholas
When
putting
I
it
go to
on me.
dog training, I'm always wearing my Crocs. And every time they're like, "Hey, you gonna wear those to competition?" I'm out there training a dog, and one flies off my foot. I just keep going. So no, I like my Crocs. Half the time, like I'm kind of like you. I'm never really on the truck anymore. And so when I go out to the job and I see something needs to be done, I just run up there and I look down. I'm wearing Crocs instead of cougar paws or something. So it does happen.
That's what happens. So I've got shoes in the truck right here, but sneakers, but they're buried. I'm pretty sure they're there somewhere, but I very rarely put them on. And
Yeah, but the
like
thing
I said, I
about where
try to
you
avoid.
also the thing about in California, you don't have a lot of steep roofs because you don't. It's not like you got to keep snow off and all of that kind of stuff off of the roof in the first place.
There, you know, it's true. I mean, there are peaks out here, and I'd say most people that I see on your site and on the other sites that for holiday lights, they would consider the most of the roofs ladder only roofs. But what most people consider ladder only roofs are really on the roof roofs for me. It's
Right.
very rare that I've had maybe one or two peaks I've had to say no to, where I've been like, nope, not even I'm willing to climb up on that, even with a goat. I've had a
Right.
couple ones that even with the goat, I just didn't feel right about it. I did have a crew one year though. I told this guy every year he called me. I'm like, no, we're not doing your house. And then one year I wasn't able to be out in the field, and I didn't recognize the address and sent it out to one of my crews. And it was this guy working by himself, and he was on a 32-foot ladder, tippy toes, putting up that peak on the top rung when I pulled up. And I'm like, dude, I didn't even know it was this house. I'd have told you not to. But boy, the guy got it done. The guy got it done. You know,
I
I
went
mean,
out to a
I
job
wouldn't
site one
recommend.
time. I
Go
went
ahead.
out to a job site one time, and I go out there, and they have a 40-foot ladder fully extended, and they have a 24-foot ladder ratchet strapped to that one, and they're up there, and that ladder's going like, and I'm just like, oh my god, what
Hey,
are
wait,
you guys doing? It was the
we call
sketchiest
that
thing
we
I've ever
call
seen
that
in my
going
entire life.
taco.
We go taco.
You're out. Hey, I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna say it, but that's exactly what it was. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, no problem. We do it all the time. I'm like, get down, get down. Holy cow!
Yeah, no, I mean, we do some crazy stuff, but I'm the one that generally does the crazy stuff since I'm the owner. You know, if there's a, we've had, I'm the only one, knock on wood, I'm the only one that's fallen off a roof in the 20 years. I did fall off a 2-story roof. Luckily, the first story broke the fall before I slid off and onto the, so, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'd say that one of the most important things for guys, any new guys that are listening or getting into it, make sure you get what's called a ladder lock. A lot of guys don't think about it. They think they can just put their ladder up against the gutter, and if you're not real ladder savvy, you get up towards the top of that ladder and it starts sliding across that gutter and moving back, and if you're a little sketchy on ladders, that little bit of movement causes your whole body to jerk, and the next thing you know, you're dropping 40 feet. So get one of the, I forget what they're called, but they're like a ladder lock. They lock onto the ladder, lock onto the gutter, and they'll keep your ladder from getting blown down in the wind. I've had that happen before where I've been stuck on a 3-story house with the ladder on the ground. So, but yeah,
I had an
I can't
employee.
think.
Well, I wasn't there. He was like, "Wow, it's real windy today. I sure hope the ladder doesn't fall over." And then he gets up on the roof, sets the ladder exactly how he would on a normal day. He gets up there, and the wind blows the ladder over right onto the client's car. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, I've
and
had
they're the
that
ones that
happen
told me
once
the
too.
story. Like, I wasn't there. I was like, so you're telling me that you literally said, "Wow, it's a windy day. This ladder's probably going to get blown over," and then you set up the ladder anyways and didn't
Yeah,
bungee cord it or anything like that. They're like, "Yeah, that's what insurance is for." I was like, "I'll kill you. I will kill
yeah.
you right now." What do you mean that's what insurance is for?
All right.
Ah,
So
Well,
I
you
don't
know,
want to.
that's like the crews, the guys on your crew that you say, okay, go do that line, and then you walk. 10 minutes later, you come around the side of the house and you look up on the roof, and he's sitting there at the end of the line, and you're like, well, what are you doing? He said, well, I got done with what you told me to do. I'm
yeah.
like, well, do something else. You know, it's like that's the tough part. You got to get guys that are smart enough to find something else to do when they're done with whatever they were doing.
Yep. All right.
I
So I don't want to keep you all night here, and I know we can talk all day and night, but what if you were a new guy starting over? What are some words of encouragement, or a guy that's trying to grow his business? What are some words of encouragement so that way that you could help him out in a way that might just be that one little word or nugget that you can give?
gosh, I'm probably not going to have any type of epiphany for anybody right now, but I would say this, that man, you got to keep on plowing forward, and that it's never it's never too late in the season to book another deal. When I was doing my signs on the street, the little 8x11 signs, I put them all the way up, all the way through December 20th. And if you've got an, oh shoot, my phone just died on you guys.
All right. You're still there, but
Hey, yeah. Anyways, my phone is gonna die.
all right.
Oh, there it goes.
I think it's dead. But I want to hit on here a couple things here. I'm actually going to close him out so you don't look like he's dying on us over there. I think I can. Let me see if I can or not. But somebody asked a question. So obviously, if you're looking for Christmas lights, you can go to christmaslights.io and you can find some information there. I got a place that you can buy them. It's going to take you to the next place. I'm going to tell you where you can buy them. It also has training, stuff like that. Donovan, tell us where else you can buy Christmas lights at.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to christmaslights.io, it'll bring you to our site, which is christmaslightcontractorsusa.com. We have all the professional grade lights, and the difference between what we have and what you can buy at Home Depot is that our lights are 100% customizable. So the lights that you see on the house behind Jason's head right now, those are not what you can get from Home Depot. Okay, those are that you custom cut them to fit the home exactly. If you don't know what we talk about, the difference between professional grade and homeowner grade, watch some more of Jason's videos. But you can find essentially though, if you just want to go one place, keep it easy. Christmaslights.io. You can learn from a pro, buy pro products, or hire a pro. So learn from a pro will bring up our in-person training, and we have a secret announcement here in about 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to bring you to something else as well. So stay tuned for that. Or if you're going to click on Buy Pro Products, it's going to bring you to our website, which is christmaslightcontractorsusa.com.
So that's just what I wanted to hit on. We are having an in-person training come September 6th, or I don't know when the dates are. I think it's
17th, 18th, and 19th of September.
so it is. We will teach how to do Christmas lights. We teach everything from Saturday for the Christmas light. Well, Friday is going to be pressure washing. Saturday is going to be all about business. It's going to be about ladder safety. It's going to be about aerial safety. It's going to be about marketing, how to get big jobs, how to quote jobs, everything like that. Sunday is all hands on. Sunday is all hands on. Christmas lights, how to install them, how to put them up, and you actually get to do it. We have props that you will be able to do everything from the ground, so everybody's doing everything safe. And so that is what it is. If you have employees and you want to do employee training, we have that where it's just for that Sunday. So that way you can do employee training, and that way it will. We will teach your employees how to do everything. There will be a little bit of ladder safety on Sunday, but most of the ladder safety will be on Saturday of that afternoon. So. If you want to speak, if you want to be a guest on here, whether you're on Facebook or you want to be on here, comment on here, or the Facebook group. I actually put the Facebook group in the description, so it's Christmas Light Contractors. You can go join that group. I would highly suggest it. There's lots of cool kids in there. And so there, you will have to put your email address and stuff in there, but that is something that you want to do. Any last words from you, Donovan?
I'll answer one question that just popped up on YouTube. It was do people really pay 50% on close of the deal? How do you talk them into that? Well, I'm gonna answer that in two ways. Maybe can you help them? Um, I'm gonna answer that in two ways. And Jason, she was like, I remember him from the office, so she remembered you, Jason. Um, Yes, we absolutely collect 50%. The job is not sold unless they've given you a deposit. Okay. Why? Because people get buyer's remorse. We're after a premium type thing, or they tell their husband, or they do this, or they do that. But the moment, like, we can talk crap about a Tesla car all day long, but the moment you buy one, somebody's talking smack about it. Now you got skin in the game. So the job is not sold unless you get a 50% deposit. And then how do we talk them into that? I do not. Um, I absolutely do not ever talk a client into buying a Christmas light package from me. Um, yeah, when we do that's what I'm saying. When we do the quote, all right, we collect a 50% deposit on the quote, and then when we install, they pay the other 50% at the time of install. So when the lights go up, we've gotten paid 100%. But that quote isn't even, we don't even schedule the job. We don't even give them a schedule date until they pay a 50% deposit. Now, and let me get back to to like talking people into this. This is a premium priced luxury service. It is not a necessity. Okay. So what I don't want to do is be such a good salesman that I talk somebody into this that can't afford it. Because I don't want people maxing out their credit card. I don't want them not buying presents for their little kids, right? That's not what I want. I don't want people to be upset with me because they've spent way too much money on this, right? So I'm simply going to talk about when we're quoting, I'm going to talk about the value that I provide, and then The moment they say no, hey, no problem. Why don't you? And this is what I say all the time. I said, please follow us on Facebook because we are constantly posting like DIY tips. So that way, you can make your house look like this yourself. You can go buy lights and make it an event with your children and stuff like that. Like just go out and make a memory with your family and you guys put up the lights. I said, follow us on Facebook and you can get all the professional tips. Like I freely share it. So yeah, I don't talk people into it at all, but I do require that deposit for them to even get put on the schedule. And then I don't give them a service date. I just say, hey, you're in line. We'll get to you when we get to you.
The biggest thing I would say about this is where we're pre-qualifying people. This is where we're saying, hey, our minimum $600, $800, our average ticket's $1,000, $1,500. And when you pre-qualify that person, that right there is going to be enough you're going to get one of two answers. You do what? There's no way I would pay that much. Or okay. So once they say okay, that means they probably got enough to be able to handle that price.
Right.
And so when you say, and this is part of the selling price, or this is part of the sale of, and to get on the schedule, we take 50% up front. And then what we always did was the day after the install, we would charge your card 50% unless you had a different payment of that. So, because by getting that 50% up front, that puts a card on file. So then that way I can get that rest of that 50% and I'm not going to cutting your lights to try to get my money back. And so that's the reason why we did that for. So
yeah, absolutely. And I've never not collected money, right? There's been a few times where somebody, whatever their card, people are spending money, right? This time of year. So like me, for the longest time, I only had a $2,500 credit card. So it's real easy to buy, a couple of gifts, one or two gifts, and your credit card's maxed out. So I've had it a few times where that card bounces when I go to charge the final install because again, I'm not giving them a service date, so I may show up earlier or later than what they're planning on. They just haven't paid off their card yet. So I'm not like me personally. I'm not going to install the lights. I'm going to install the lights, and then I'm following up every day, every other day, and making sure, just reminding them. Because if you wait till after Christmas to get paid, you ain't getting paid.
yep.
All right. If you wait till takedown, you ain't getting paid. So I'll tell you two stories and then we'll end on that. One lady said, why would I pay you 100% when the job's not done until you've taken them down? And for me, that was an indicator right there, right there. She was worried about paying at the time of install. She's like, well, the job's not done until you take me down in January, so I'll pay you. And she tried to dictate terms of service. I said, hey, I completely understand. You're not a good fit for my company. Hope you have a great life. Right? So that's an indicator. Client tries to dictate terms, no go. And there you go. And then the other thing is I have only had one client that ever had buyer's remorse. And the way that it happened was her sister had hired us for a year or two. And then that year they were all having Thanksgiving at her house. So she hired us that year because, I think there's maybe some peer pressure or sibling pressure there or whatever, but she couldn't afford it. I'm just going to be upfront with you. It's like, it's one of those things. She couldn't afford it. And then we never promised her that it would get done by Thanksgiving. But she kept asking, kept asking, kept asking. We're like, hey, we got 3 ahead of you, 2 ahead of you, 1 ahead of you. And then it ended up getting done the day after Thanksgiving. And this lady, I went out there. She complained about the wreath not having enough decorations on it. So I go out there and, hey, Gracie, keep it down, please. So I go out there and I get a whole new wreath for her and I buy her flowers and I show up and I'm like whining and dining this lady. I'm so sorry that this wreath didn't have enough decorations. And by the way, I bought you some poinsettia plants and I went out there and I put more lights on bushes and more lights on trees. And like, I was just going above and beyond because she called and complained. And I was like, I'm going to fix this. And I'm also going to go above and beyond to make sure she was happy. And she still wasn't happy. She was upset. And I said, what could I do to make you happy so that I can earn your business next year? I said, that's really what I'm after. I want this to be the happiest time of year for you and for you to be so happy that that you'll hire us, that you'll always hire us again. I'm so sorry that the wreath wasn't decorated enough. And she said, well, what you could do is you could give me a $500 discount. And that was another indicator to me, right? Because her card bounced on the day that we installed it. We tried to run the second payment, and then it took her another week or two to pay it off. And then she complained about something small, and she tried to find a reason to get a discount. So she had buyer's remorse. She couldn't afford it. She tried to find something to complain about. She tried to, she tried to put it on me. And so I'm just never after that. I always want it to be a win-win-win. And I only want people who can afford it. So, and then what I told her, I said, hey, I'll absolutely give you a $500 discount next year when you hire us again. So she ain't getting a discount on what we've already put up. But yeah, next year. So.
Yep. So we're going to jump off here. Again, you can go check out christmaslights.io. And if in the Facebook group anybody else wants to come on, we're more than happy. We're going to do this every Monday night at 7:30. Is the goal. I'm not promising 100%, but that is the goal. Whether I get on here or Donovan gets on here, somehow we get it up. And unless I'm traveling or something. So I am got some travels coming up, so I will be traveling some. So it is a little bit harder for me to do it when I'm traveling, but I'm going to try. So hope you all have a great night and a great week. Again, I know I've seen a lot in the Facebook groups of people selling a lot of jobs right now for Christmas lights. I think this year is going to be another good year for Christmas lights. So keep pounding on payment. Keep doing the things you need to do to get that. Keep getting your Google My Business up and your pictures up and doing all the things you need to do to grow your Christmas light business. This is a business that you can make a lot of money at. And, is it an easy business to sell? No, it's not the easiest thing to sell. I'm not saying it is. It's, in fact, you're going to get a lot of no's, and you get a lot more no's than you ever do yeses. So you got to overcome those no's to be able to keep growing. Last week, I usually say 20%. Last week, Jason said he's only at like 14%. So that's a lot of no's to get 14 yeses. Out of 100 clients, you're only getting 14 people to tell you yes. So it's all about a numbers game at the end of the day. It's all about getting out there and doing the things you need to do to grow your business. So we'll see you on Monday night. And you can go check out this here to buy lights or go do training. It is a great training. We're putting a lot into it. So hope you all have a great night.